Welcome to the Mornings with Matt Career Podcast. Today we're joined by Astawa Alam. After getting kicked out of school twice, Astawa built DXM Creative, an innovative web design agency. His firm boasts a roster of clients, including award-winning entrepreneurs, international nonprofits, and large universities. He joins us today to share his learnings from going against the grain. If you like what you hear and want to learn more, check out our website, morningswithmattp.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mornings with Matt P, or follow me, Matt Parkin, on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us today, Astawa.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite, Matt. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Looking forward to the conversation. So, can you start us off and walk us through what your educational journey has looked like? I know it's been a bit unconventional, so I'd love to hear all about it.
Absolutely. Well, before we dive in, definitely you want to buckle your seatbelts because it's been a roller coaster since I left high school. And even in grade 12, when we were all deciding where to apply and what to apply to, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a great objective or a big goal or even a calling that I really wanted to go to. I knew what I liked doing and I had some interests and a couple of innate skills, I think, but really no clear direction on where I wanted to go. So I thought about what I wanted to do as a kid, and that was always to be a pilot. So I'm like, all right, let's give the forces a shot. So I applied to the forces with the goal of becoming an Air Force pilot. But of course, with parents like mine and any South Asian who's listening knows that our parents want you to go to school to be a professional, to get a white collar job, and to pursue that career path. So my parents urged me to consider applying to some colleges for anything and everything. So I just did that to get them to leave me alone for a little bit. I ended up applying to a bunch of different colleges for some business programs and some other miscellaneous programs that are pretty forgettable at this point. And that was at the beginning of the summer. So the summer after I left high school. And then once August rolls around, my mom asks me, hey, did you get in anywhere? And I said, that's a good question. Let me go check. And surprise, surprise, I somehow got into Seneca College for a Bachelor of Commerce in Business Management, if I remember correctly. So I said, all right, why not? Let's go do this thing. How bad can it be? And those 2.5, 3 years that I was there, it was like I was going on an autopilot. I felt like a zombie waking up at like 5 a.m. every morning to catch the bus all the way from Brampton to go to their North York campus for an 8 a.m. class. So I hated my time there. The walls were all gray. It was very drab. And I also had professors teaching me about business who had never worked in business themselves. So it made no sense to me. And I'm sure I know Seneca is a great place now and they have some amazing graduates, but at the time it was not for me. So I don't remember what happened exactly. I think I did get kicked out of there too, but I decided to actually make a switch to Sheridan College in Mississauga. Figured it was closer and it's also a bit more specialized in marketing. So got in and I enjoyed that a lot more, but of course my grades suffered there too. I was just a lot more fascinated with actually doing things with my hand and learning on hands and doing stuff on the job than I wasn't really content with being in classrooms and taking notes and studying that way. So my educational journey throughout college was very up and down, but eventually after the multiple suspensions and academic probations, I made it out. I actually graduated last December finally, all the while I've been working full time and growing my business as well. So it's been a crazy journey, but I'm happy to say that I've finally graduated and I do have a degree in marketing now.
That's awesome. That's a great achievement. So congratulations on that, and thank you for sharing your story. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of folks. Understanding the family piece as well as going through a program that maybe doesn't resonate with you, and having the confidence to say, you know what, like let's go and try something else. And on that note about trying something else, you started off your professional side of things, right? You were working at McDonald's, you were working at Sunglasses Hut, doing some of those typical fast food retail jobs that a lot of people do growing up. So were you able to develop any skills that you think have helped you in your marketing journey in those roles?
Matt, you dug into the recesses of my LinkedIn and resume to pull those examples out. I wouldn't say my professional career started at McDonald's, but my working life definitely did. And McDonald's was it's funny. McDonald's, I was working there while I started at Seneca too. So I mentioned that Seneca was kind of like a zombie period of my life where I was just moving on autopilot. McDonald's was kind of like that too. But I did learn the value of speed and and attention to my team. McDonald's, if anyone's worked there, you know that's a very, very fast paced place to be at. And it's almost an assembly line the way you pump out food. So if you're not doing your part, then the whole thing falls apart. But well, once I made at McDonald's, which I was thrilled at, I did a bunch of retail jobs that I actually don't have listed on my LinkedIn. I probably have worked over a dozen different retail jobs. I jumped around a lot. And it was fun to do so. And I think doing that actually accelerated a lot of my learnings in that environment and led me to a place like Sunglass Hut, where, long story short, I joined during the holiday season as a seasonal associate, just a regular employee. But I quickly actually found my way up the ranks into managing my own store at Square One in Mississauga, and sorry, assistant managing at Square One and managing my own store at the at Pearson Airport. And that was my first time being in any sort of leadership capacity where I had teammates that were reporting up to me, where I was in charge of delegating responsibilities, ensuring that they were taken care of, and ensure that I was steering the ship towards the right direction. So that's when I started to hone a lot of that leadership experience and those skills and needed to convey what needed to be done and to get people to want to go along with the mission. It really challenged me in terms of how do I motivate people to do something that they might not want to do, but is beneficial for the larger organization. So I was definitely a rough around the edges leader at that point, but I'm grateful for those experiences because those first kind of tough learning moments and those scrapes I got on my knee, I wouldn't be as I wouldn't be I'm better now because of all that happened way back when I worked at Sunglass Hut. So a lot of those things that still carry forward to this day in some capacity or another.
I love that. And with the pieces of motivation you learned to motivate your team, can you use some of that motivation for aspiring entrepreneurs out there, right? I know you do a lot of talks in the space. Do you have any what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs that might want to follow in your footsteps?
I'll give some contrary advice because a lot of entrepreneurs, I think I grew up. So for context for your listeners, right now I'm 27, and I know I might not look like I know I might look older or younger depending on what side of the spectrum you're on. But I think I grew up in the era of the Instagram entrepreneur in entrepreneurship golden age of social media, where it was just starting to pop off around 2013 and got really big around the 2017, 2016, 2015 mark. So I grew up with a lot of the hustle porn and the entrepreneurial quote unquote wisdom in the form of Instagram quotes and fancy carousels. And a lot of those mantras revolve around dropping anything and everything that isn't working on your own business or leaving anything and everything that isn't contributing to you being self-employed. And while a degree of that risk embracing is required to succeed as an entrepreneur, the two pieces of contrary advice that I would give listeners today is that number one, you don't need to quit a full-time job to go be entrepreneurial or to go all in on your ventures. And number two, you don't need to also say no to school to go do that as well. Especially when you're young, when you're in your late teens and your early 20s, being at a place like a university or a college where you're surrounded by like-minded, ambitious people is a great way to build a team and to also just bounce ideas off of people. Not to mention what seems like limitless resources that universities and colleges have now to help young entrepreneurs build their companies. You have accelerators and boot camps on campus. You have the Googles of the world coming to schools to help people build their startups as well. So you're actually making it harder for yourself by maybe leaving school and not considering it in the first place. And with the whole job thing too, it's super, super attractive and it's very romanticized to leave your job to go build what you're working on full time. But when you have the income of your side hustle or your venture on top of a full-time or a part-time income, you can accelerate your growth a lot faster. Not to mention the fact that you can forego the loneliness and toughness of building a startup alone when you have your overhead expenses taken care of by a job too. So if people are fortunate enough to put themselves in that position, then I would highly encourage them to build their entrepreneurial career that way.
That's really great advice, not only for myself as someone, who's been contemplating, do I take a side hustle full time? Do I work a full-time job? And I think, like you said, I met a lot of my co-founders last couple of years in school through classes, through group projects, that
There
kind
you
of
go.
thing. So it's been a great opportunity for that. And the income piece is nice too, to have a bit of security, so you're not stressed. Because I feel like if you take your entrepreneurial venture full time too early, that's when you're
Hmm.
going to get really stressed. Where, can I put food on the table? Can I pay the
Yeah,
bills? Can I keep everything going? And it takes away a lot of the fun, I feel like, from building a company.
absolutely. Matt, one of the things that I've learned in the past, I would consider myself an entrepreneur since 2013. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that you need to give yourself the runway to succeed, because if you're passionate and you have an ounce of intelligence, chances are you will succeed, but you just need to give yourself enough time to do so, because you could be early, the market could not be ready yet, you may have a good idea that's still it still needs refining, but if you don't have that runway in terms of taking care of yourself and paying your bills, you might not reach that success point too. So you got to give yourself time to actually capitalize on what you're building.
I love that. That's some great advice there. And if people don't have an idea to start their own business, but let's say they're doing like they've developed some marketing skills and they say, "Huh, maybe people will pay for this, right?" Do you have any advice for them on how to use their skills as a freelancer?
I think freelancing is something that everyone should consider if it's right for them. And if it is right for freelancing is probably a huge way to increase your value as a knowledge worker in today's information society. What's great about working in 2022 is that we're no longer making money. Most of us are privileged enough where we're not making money off of our labor. We don't have to go out into fields or into mines and use our hands and bodies to earn an income. Rather, people like you and I are earning an income based off of what we know, our knowledge. And how do you sharpen that knowledge? By practicing more, by doing more of that work. So if you're a marketer, if you're a copywriter or a designer, and you're only practicing your work within the confines of your 9 to 5, you'll have a great life. You'll have a great stable life that I'm sure you'll be happy with. But if you're one of those people that are looking to really get to the next step and become a leader of your field, or someone who's admired by the industry and has made it to the top of the ranks, then you might want to sharpen your knife a little bit more than your counterparts are. And freelancing is a great way to expose yourself to more experiences that you might not get when you're working in one industry or on one brand or client. If you're freelancing with a number of different clients across a number of different industries, you not only get to do your thing and practice your craft more often, but you gain the breadth of experience and the color that you would not have gained otherwise if you just stayed with one company. So that's also a great way to, of course, earn more income. But when it does come time for you to switch jobs, your portfolio is a lot more attractive to the next company or the next recruiter, because they see that not only are you super experienced across the board, but you show that initiative, that soft skill that people really, really value and want to have on their team. And that, Matt, I want to emphasize as entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship, for those who try it out, might find that it's not for them. It's hard being on your own and trying to go in against the grain and build a company. But that initiative and drive to try and build something of your own inside of a company, that's called entrepreneurship. And companies value that spirit so much because they know that that's what drives innovation and brings a whole team forward, closer to their mission as well. So it's a huge value add to you.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, and especially for a company that you're working at, right? You mentioned the job search piece helping you land that next job by leveraging the freelance experience, but I think it can also help you get promotions or even just do more in your current work, because if you do some
Mhm.
freelance work and you meet a connection, maybe that's a new potential client or partner at your full-time job. I've had a lot of intersectionalities between some of the stuff I'm doing on the side as well as my full-time role. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So that's a great point to bring up. And jumping into the last kind of topic for today. So we talked a little bit about marketing and freelancing entrepreneurship, but what kind of schooling background is needed for someone who is interested in a career in marketing? What can they do to get started?
So I'll start with this. I'll start with a bit of a story, Matt, and it sort of revolves around me, of course. And it's that I started working with clients and businesses of all different sizes and organizations across the map in a marketing capacity before I even got my degree. And the beauty of a field like marketing is that you don't need the quote unquote academic credentials or the gatekeepers of school to give you permission to become a marketer. A marketer is anyone who can spot stories, who can spin out stories from different situations and and tell them in any sort of medium, whether that's written, visual, audio, and tell them in a way that resonates with a group of people. So for me, I learned the first skill in marketing that I really learned was web design, and that evolved into branding, into copywriting, into now what I do at my company right now, Roofer, as a content marketing manager. So you don't need schooling or a degree to become a marketer, but you do need to be educating yourself very, very often. And there's this great quote from Mark Twain that I love that I probably overuse that really emphasizes this and encapsulates super well. Mark Twain once said, "Don't ever let your schooling get in the way of your education." And I think that rings so true for any creative field like marketing, because oftentimes what I've noticed with my peers when I was in school is that they felt like they couldn't go intern at a company or even start their own marketing ventures without first having the degree under their belt. And I get it. I get the feeling of imposter syndrome. But at the end of the day, a field like marketing is all about sharing messages that resonate with people enough to move them to take action. And there's so many skills that you can learn on your own time through YouTube University, through Coursera, through just chatting with industry professionals or listening to a podcast like this that you can start applying right away to build a portfolio for yourself. So for anyone who's listening, Matt, who might be considering going to a university or a college for marketing because they want to start a marketing career, I would tell them, great, good luck. I hope you get in and have a great time. But don't limit your education to only what's being taught in the classroom. Take the initiative to educate yourself outside of class time, add on to what you're learning, and really understand what's relevant in the market today. Because as someone who recently finished marketing school, I can tell you that what I use on the job isn't what was taught to me in classrooms. A lot of what I learned on my own is what I'm using every single day to drive revenue for my company and to build up the marketing team that we have today. So carving out an educational career path for you in marketing can be a lot of fun, and it gets even more fun when you take the onus on yourself to educate yourself.
I feel the same way. I think school and structured education is great for meeting people, building relationships, getting to work in a team. But like you said, some of the day-to-day things that you're going to be doing the most often are skills that you've picked up on your own, watching a YouTube video or just trying it out and seeing what works, right? So I think that's
Yep.
some great advice for our listeners, and really appreciate you hopping on the podcast today, Astawa, to
Anytime.
share your learnings with everyone.
Anytime, Matt. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. Stay tuned for next week's episode, everyone. If you found the episode helpful, we'd love if you can leave a review and share it with a friend. If you want to learn more, check out our website at morningswithmattp.com. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at morningswithmattp, or follow me, Matt Parkin, on LinkedIn. We'll see you next week.